Both here in the YouTube comments and over on my live streams, I frequently get asked the same question: why do I use Lavos so much? It's a fair question. He pops up in almost all of my videos and accounts for a lot of my overall mission time. There's got to be something special about him, right? Time to bring you all up to speed. I'm the Engineer, let's solve a practical problem. Seeing as this is a question I get a lot on stream, this is as good a time as any to let you know I stream 3 days a week, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday over on Twitch. Check out the link in the video description. Lavos is a powerful Warframe, one I do undeniably use a lot of the time. Sometimes I use him even when he's not the best Warframe for a mission. He's also not the simplest Warframe in the game. That award probably goes to Loki. However, the reasons I play Lavos can be broken down into 3 easy to understand sections. If you want to just know what he does or how to build with his augment in mind, I've already done videos on those topics. Today, we're going to look at the true practicalities of why Lavos. Adaptability. One of the most standout features of Lavos for anyone who's not already used him is his innate power to put any of the basic and combination elements into his abilities. He's got access to toxin, cold, electric, heat, viral, corrosive, gas, magnetic, blast and radiation on demand. Already, this gives him a lot of adaptability. Some people look at that and just crumble. How do I choose which elements to use? What's the optimal combination? How do I even begin to comprehend all of this? If you find yourself mentally blue screening at this stage, then I can confidently say you're overthinking it. Just having 10 different elemental options doesn't mean we're using all 10 of them at any given time, or that each of those 10 are even relevant. Break it down moment by moment into purpose. If I'm facing the corpus and the purpose of my next ability cast is to deal damage to them, I'm not going to use corrosive or blast. Toxin bypasses corpus shields, and magnetic deals with the shields I can't bypass. That's it. That's the entire decision. The same is true against the Grineer. Heat, viral, corrosive. They all work well on his 4th depending on what effects are already on the enemies. Need some breathing room? Radiation makes enemies turn on each other. Need to slow an enemy down? Cold works even on acolytes and demolishers. Need to stun an enemy without them flailing? Electric will hold most enemies in place for a bit. Lavos' elemental selection isn't about having lots of choices all the time. It's about having enough choices to act in the different situations you face. This is also why Lavos only infuses Blast if you feel like having a giggle, because nothing calls for Lavos to use Blast. Lavos' adaptability goes beyond elemental selection. His individual abilities also help adapt to and stand strong in various circumstances. His first ability is a healing ability, a core survival tool. It also opens up enemies for finishers for a brief moment. While in most circumstances you don't really need finishers, this allows you to adapt further parts of your playstyle to accommodate and benefit from that. The Inodem, for example, has a perk for heavy attack efficiency on doing a finisher, allowing for reduced combo loss on activating Incarnate Form. Lavos provides a way to make that happen. Opening enemies to finishers can also enable a takedown of heavier units should the mission begin to outscale your equipment. Lavos' second ability is a mobility tool, which, with experience, can be used to outpace all but your fastest allies. You cover terrain quickly and apply a pair of status effects throughout the dash, ideal for preparing the affected enemies to be quickly dispatched. If you time your cast correctly, you can Vile Rush, reset cooldowns with Transmutation Probe, Vile Rush while the probe is in flight, and then Vile Rush immediately again because the probe hit even more enemies during your second Vile Rush. This creates a triple dash combo which covers some serious distance if done right. Speaking of Transmutation Probe, this one is packed with options. Not only is it a long cylinder of status application, great for priming enemies for any number of follow-up actions, it also briefly opens enemies to finishers, resets cooldowns, and makes ammo and ore pickups simply superior to what they were before. This even restores the ammo of summoned heavy weapons, a rare ability and possibly becoming more valuable with the announced buff to heavy weapons coming soon. By the time you've gone through all of those abilities, we have Lavos' 4th. It's primarily a damage dealer, but it too can also be used as a status focused assault. Going back to the crowd control options, this can apply cold or radiation in a large area, massively hindering the nearby enemies. Yes, it's not a spherical cast and thus requires a little bit more sense on where you place it. That doesn't stop it being powerful. With a setup including the Swift Bite augment, Lavos is able to cast more frequently and effectively than many other Warframes without having to build around energy management. All of this adaptation brings us on to the second major feature of Lavos: resilience. Lavos is exceptionally resilient, and I don't just mean in terms of hit points. Hit points is definitely a huge part of this though. Lavos has the second highest base armor in the game, behind only Valkyria Prime. He then also has twice the base health of Valkyria Prime, and he has some shields too, granting additional shield gating that neither Inaros nor Kalervo can benefit from. Only Grendel can boast a better array of health, armor and shields for pure resilience purposes. Now yes, health tanking isn't immortal. Once you reach levels in the high hundreds or thousands, certainly if you lack decree buffs from the circuit, health tanks will fail. It's a good thing then that basically the entire game doesn't exist at those levels. It's like complaining that the screen on your Samsung fridge isn't big enough to appreciate a HD texture mod for Skyrim. Frankly, it's such a manufactured and niche issue. For where 99% of gameplay exists, health tanks not only survive, but in Lavos' case, they thrive. The real benefit of such a defensive frame is that you can spend a lot more time and mental energy on everything else rather than trying to not be dead. Lavos can line up perfect shots or position for optimal ability cast because he doesn't have to consider if standing still for 2 seconds will get him killed. Even if Lavos is nullified or silenced, health tanks continue to just exist and resist as much as needed. This same resilience extends to his functionality. Not only does Lavos himself not get shut down by missions, neither do his abilities. Lavos, as an energy-free Warframe, is immune to so many threats that it's hard to take it all in. Sensor barriers with laser fields? There's no energy to tap. Leech Xmas? Not a threat. Ancient Disruptors? I laugh at them. When it comes to high energy railjack abilities, we cast those for free. As for starting energy, we start with all abilities ready to go. It doesn't matter what situation Lavos finds himself in. So long as he's been played somewhat correctly, you can continue to do whatever you want to get up to, and the enemies pretty much can't stop you. This is his resilience. While some frames are designed around being an unstoppable force, Lavos is the immovable object. Or rather, he moves only when he chooses to do so. So far, I've focused on what he can do or can avoid being forced to do. The third major feature of Lavos is a little harder to sum up in one word, but the closest would be unobtrusive. For everything Lavos can do, he can also just do nothing and be very good at it. When I say nothing, I don't mean to say he could be swapped out for someone else and we'd be none the wiser. I mean it as in he can simply exist and still provide the value we need without having any demands or intrusions of his own. As I mentioned earlier, I stream on Twitch. A big part of live streaming is speaking to the people who are chatting on the stream. I can tell you from a lot of experience that it's substantially easier to do that when I can take my eyes off the screen and properly read people's messages. Lavos doesn't intrude with a demand for action in this time. There's no energy management or ability management needed. He doesn't call for a complex series of maneuvers every moment of the mission. Lavos can just wade through near enough anything with as much or as little focus as I have to give at that time. Yes, I'm a better player with full focus, but the costs of being unfocused are reduced with Lavos, more so than with many other frames. I also use Lavos in my videos a lot while demonstrating weapons. Why? Because he's not influencing the weapon. I can choose to, sure. I could apply buffs with subsumed abilities, or apply elemental procs and use that to increase the weapon's effect. Or I can just not. Lavos provides a reliable reference or control frame that doesn't change what the weapon is doing, allowing the weapon to shine as bright as it is capable of. You, the viewer, see the weapon for the weapon. Adding on to that, the resilience I mentioned earlier means I'm not trying to avoid dying every time I showcase another weapon feature. Where I'm taking the time to line up headshots or picking the perfect corridor to detonate, once again, Lavos is unobtrusive by letting other parts of the game exist and be visible without demands. For gameplay that's not focused on content creation, Lavos provides the calmer existence through and through. You and I can be as active with our casting or passive with our tanking as we see fit. Lavos' non-interference and non-demanding design allows for your personal gameplay to be as frantic or chilled out as you wish in any given moment, all while still succeeding at what you do. The truth is, Lavos is not the best Warframe in the game. He cannot make use of the auger set or most forms of shield gating. Lavos has poor weapon buffing options. Lavos lacks stealth. Lavos cannot fly. Lavos cannot compose a sonnet nor compare thee to a summer's day. He is instead a comfortable, adaptable, resilient, and unobtrusive answer that may not always be the best answer to a problem, but for all practical purposes is rarely the wrong answer. So should you next see me using Lavos in a video or a live stream, you may want to consider less why am I using Lavos, but rather would another Warframe really be better for the job at hand? Not just more deadly or more speedy, but in consideration of all aspects involved, really, truly better. Usually, if another Warframe would be, that's the one you'll see on screen. This is all one big opinion piece, and naturally, everyone has their preferences. We have over 50 Warframes to choose from, because everyone has their own choice. I hope you now better understand my choice, and what really makes Lavos fit for me. If you want to know more, or see him in action, make sure to join me on my live streams on Twitch, with the link below. And as always, play smart, tank hard, and fight well, Tenno.